Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's video 44 coming at you with another video. So I could not contain myself. I drafted most of my fantasy basketball teams yesterday early. I know 10-team leagues. I hate it, and that's the thing. I guess what they're doing this go round is they're not allowing 12-team leagues or 14-team leagues in the when you do the open drafts where you draft against strangers. But I don't care. 10 teams, 12 teams, it doesn't matter as long as there's the same amount of players on each team. All that means the waiver wire just has more on it. You feel like you're cheating the game, though, honestly, because it's so easy to find good players. You have a team full of stacked players because it's only 10 teams to go by, and I'm used to going to 14 and 12, so my teams look a little overly talented. I like looking for sleepers a little more than I'm able to, so whatever. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm up to, man. I went heavy this year. One of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to get as many shares of a guy like Evan Mobley as possible, because I think the room for him to grow as their power forward with a guy like Allen there to help him with the defensive stuff, and to not be the last line of defense, to be their end all be all as it pertains to rim protection, which is what role he would have found himself in 90% of the situations he'd find himself in. That happens to not be the situation that he finds himself in today with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm super excited about his career on that team next to Allen, because that gives him so much cushion to grow, so much room for mistakes, so much room to just not have to worry about being that guy. So Cleveland, good job drafting him. I thought that was one of the best picks, and I got a lot of him on my fantasy teams this year. Also went with Jalen Green a lot. And if you've been following me, you know that Jaylen Green is not a player that I was super high on as it pertains to the other players around him. I kind of had him fourth on my list of guys in that foursome. But to be honest with you, I've drafted him more so than some of the other ones because I think of the fit in Houston. It caters to his style. I think the team that they have is one of the most talented young teams, if not the most talented young team in basketball. And I think they find themselves with an opportunity for each of their young players to have real, legitimate roles with big minutes. The only person I'd worry the most about is Kevin Porter Jr. because John Wall is still on the roster, and I'm still kind of concerned about what his role is going to look like while John Wall is playing at his best, which I think John Wall will come back strong. And if this is a winning team, which I think they have a chance of being a winning team. I don't mean a winning team. I mean a team that's looking to win instead of lose. If they're looking to make the play-in tournament and they're going to go all in to win basketball games, which I think is a decent idea, being that they don't need any draft picks at all. They got their young talent. Then John Wall is going to be an important piece, whether it be to play or to trade. Now, I've said in the past, and I'll stay on record saying that I think the best trade package for Ben Simmons is John Wall. For both teams in some ways, I think more so for the Houston Rockets. I'd rather them get rid of John Wall's contract, bringing back Ben Simmons, somebody who can help them play defense and facilitate the basketball while still having enough scorers, shooters around there to make his spacing situation make sense. But I don't think they're looking to make that move, or I haven't heard anything about that move. That's just my brain working there. But nevertheless, as long as John Wall is on that Houston team, you can be rest assured that there's going to be a cap on Kevin Porter's ceiling. But that's worked into his ADP, so I got him plenty. He's at the bottom range underneath some of the players that I know he's going to outperform this season if given an opportunity to. So his ADP is something that leaves me with a lot of him as well. I got him plenty. But Jalen Green is somebody I picked up because he fits in just well. He slips right in as a player that I think is going to be a top scorer, if not the leading scorer of the Houston Rockets, probably Christian Wood, of whom I also got a lot of. So I'm big on Houston fantasy basketball this year. I just think they have plentiful balance in terms of their young players who are going to get in big minutes and have big roles, young players who are ready for those roles and are going to excel in them, players that fit together and stuff like that. So Houston's one of my favorite young squads, if not my favorite young squad in all of basketball right now. I just love their entire roster. With the exception of John Wall, I'd like them to trade him. But if they don't trade John Wall, this is still a very, very young team that can do a lot of damage. So I'm excited about them. I don't have them necessarily making the playoffs. I think they'll be like 11th. They'll be outside of the play-in tournament just off of sheer youth. But make no mistake about it, they are the brand new team to watch. They are the new Phoenix. They are the new OKC. They're the new whatever young core that makes you excited. That's the team to look at right now, in my opinion. Houston has the best young core for me. So that's one of the things I did a lot on fantasy basketball. Made sure I had plenty of them. Lakers. I only got Westbrook once. I still have 2 teams left to draft before I'm capped out with ESPN. So I might try to build around Westbrook once more, but I only got him one time. It's not that I'm low on him. It's just one of those situations where the players around him just seem to appeal to me more so this year. I made sure that I had a lot of Anthony Davis because his ADP is low because his injury history is starting to pile up. People are looking at Anthony Davis kind of like they can't trust him. And I'm not quite there yet. They got him below guys like Joel Embiid and guys like Russell Westbrook. I'm just not sure I'm doing that. Anthony Davis is above those guys. Maybe Joel Embiid, I can make that argument. I drafted him above LeBron James this year. I did. I look at LeBron James, a higher injury risk, older player, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I got a lot of AD. His ADP is like 14. I made sure I had about 5 or 6 of him out of 22 teams thus far, something like that, 23 teams. Let's see. Luka Doncic is a player that I happen to find. One thing that shocked the hell out of me, I got the number 1 pick twice thus far. Just twice. And for me, the number 1 pick should be Giannis Antetokounmpo after what I see him do in the finals, coming back from that horrible injury in the Eastern Conference Finals and playing even better. I'm convinced that he's not human and that he's the next alien athlete that you need to not ever bet against. I'm convinced of that at this point. He's the next Bron-type legend in terms of durability. So looking at him, I said I take him over Nikola Jokic. But they have Jokic ADP as the number 1 player in the league. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's MVP. But I got a chance to get him once. That's what shocked the hell out of me. Like, if you don't get that number 1 pick, you might not get Jokic. People are taking Jokic, and they're taking him fast. So that's just one thing that I noticed. If you're a Nikola Jokic fan, you're rolling the dice, buddy. Because that boy's flying off the board quick. With no top 3 spots, he's out of here. So, yeah, that's something that kind of was eye-opening for me. I thought Giannis would be the number 1 player in fantasy. One thing that I thought is absurd, the most ridiculous ADP in the entire thing right now, and I honestly just think it's a typo because it's so early. Once they do an update, I'm sure they will update this individual's ADP. But right now, if you're drafting an ESPN fantasy, John Collins is like, they playing John Collins like he's somebody that he's not. They got him down there with like Time Lord and players like that. Listen, you read the little bio they have on him, his numbers were great last year. He just got paid $125 million for 5 years. His team went to the Eastern Conference Finals. He was a big part of it. The team is loaded. His backup power forward is out for half the season. There is no reason to be low on John Collins. John Collins, he may be an all-star this year, to be completely honest with you. And they got his ADP down there in the 90s. So when you play fantasy basketball, understand, a lot of people understand this. If you're drafting this early, a lot of people understand this, and they're taking him where he belongs. They're not leaving him down there. I've been able to luck up and get him. Like I was able to pick, I had 2 picks together. I got the 10th pick, 2 picks together later on, like the 8th round, 7th round. I was able to pair him together with PJ Washington, which was really cool. But that's it. That's the range they have him in. Like, you know, and I know that he's above that range at this point, but I personally just think it's a mistake. I honestly don't think they intended for that to be the case. His ADP should not be that high. Just like you'll see a guy like there's another person that I saw, Corey Joseph. Corey Joseph ADP is above John Collins. Like, that's just a mistake. They just need to go in there and fix that. That's all that is. I do not believe ESPN intended for those 2 things to be the case. So it's a glitch right now. Y'all can take advantage of it. What else? Who else do I got? A lot of Ben Simmons. Yes, in points leagues, not in categories leagues. No, I got maybe about 8 category teams. I ain't touching Ben in none of those until he can hit free throws and be willing to score the ball. I I question him in categories. But as far as points leagues where they just accumulate all that you do and give you a single score, yeah, Ben Simmons is going to be a star in that league. As usual, nothing should change as far as his overall performance because he's still an elite defender and elite passer. So those two things are going to translate, and he's making $1 trillion, so they're going to play him off the strength of that. So you don't have to worry about his minutes getting cut just because his spacing is messed up. No, they're going to live with the problem. And we'll see where he ends up. I'm not certain Philadelphia is going to keep him. In fact, I'm 50-50 at this point. I think it's a good chance he ends up a Warrior as of right now. Given all that stuff that happened with Draymond Green in that interview with KD, I think it's a good chance that that deal is on the table again. No news. Just understanding how things go. Now it's like, all right, Draymond, you want to play these games? We could send you to Philly for a better version of Draymond, a younger version of Draymond. So I think he was the holdup. I think he was the reason why the Golden State Warriors were not making the trade. And after he did that interview, I would imagine some people in that front office are looking at him like, well, maybe we should try to move on and upgrade there. So who knows if that's what they're thinking. That's what I think they could be thinking. I don't know if that's what I would think if I were them, by the way. Draymond's family, if y'all have turbulent times, you've been having turbulent times. One thing you know for sure is his name is going up in that rafters. So if you're going to trade him, you better make sure you trade him for something that you want. That's what I will say. Anyway, so yeah, I got a lot of Ben Simmons this year. I do think he'll probably end up on another team ultimately, but I am drafting him just the same on points leagues only. Got him on a lot of points league, no categories leagues. No categories leagues. Not me. You can add that. So that's how I have that. There's a lot of stuff I paid attention to. Jalen Suggs got passed up a little more than they should have. I believe in him more than I got him. But near the end of these last couple drafts, I made sure he was on those teams. But it's Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs slapped next to each other. And then you got Evan Mobley like 4 spaces down because of Evan Mobley's size and length. I value him above those guys. I think because of his role, I think he's going to have an opportunity to do some really, really good things. And they could go left. We've seen guys with his skill set not do anything at all. But I think the chance of him being a top 3 pick with his skill set, with his length, it's a pretty good bet that he'll be a good player to have. I have him on literally most of my teams. I think I only missed out on having Evan Mobley maybe 3 times. Maybe 3 or 4 times. He's on all my damn teams. Just like Michael Porter Jr. Not Michael Porter Jr., but Kevin Porter from Houston. Those are 2 players you're going to see a whole lot if you're playing with me. Let's see. What else are we talking about? Yeah, so that's where my head is, man. Those are the things that I'm paying attention to. Guys that I'm targeting in the back of the draft at this point. Mo Bamba, I think, is going to be a guy who's going to have a chance to break out. Isaiah Stewart, even though they have Kelly Olynyk as well. Those 2 Detroit center power forward combination players are very, very important. Because if Cade Cunningham is going to be the facilitator that I believe he's going to be, he's going to quickly find out that 2 of his most reliable weapons are those 2 players, Isaiah Stewart and Kelly Olynyk. If I'm Dwayne Casey, I'm putting both of those guys in my starting lineup. I got Grant at the 3, Cade at the 1, and probably Killian Hayes at the 2. I'm pretty sure I'm probably leaving somebody out. I think it's Sadiq Bey, possibly Sadiq Bey. I think maybe Sadiq Bey maybe finds his way as the first guy off the bench or the starter, and you let Killian Hayes come off the bench or something like that. I don't know. But what you do see in Detroit is a very, very large starting lineup. And when we talk about large starting lineups, you think about the Philadelphia 76ers, you think about the Milwaukee Bucks, obviously the Los Angeles Lakers. I personally consider those Twin Towers in Cleveland, so on and so forth. There's some big lineups out there. Minnesota's lineup is kind of big. People forget about this team here, though. Obviously, Toronto's putting together a big team as well. But don't sleep on these boys here because they got some big players that they're trotting out there, and they're not playing any kind of games in that regard. So even though they're not the most talented team, pay attention to the fact that they have big people running around. And anytime you have that going on, you have an opportunity to impose that size, implement that size, and ultimately make it very difficult on your opponent. So look out for Motorcade and the Detroit Pistons because they are not a small basketball team. They got plenty of size. Plenty. And you talk about Jeremy Grant, that's a guy who kind of got lost in the fold on a Detroit team, just like most players get lost in Detroit. Think about Josh Smith getting lost in Detroit. You think about Reggie Jackson getting lost in Detroit. It's been a lot of guys. Spencer Dinwiddie started his career in Detroit. You didn't know who he was. A lot of guys get lost in Detroit. And it looked like Jeremy Grant was on the verge of doing that. But because Motorcade came in, that flipped upside down. Now suddenly you're paying attention to Detroit and everybody on that team. I think Jeremy Grant has a chance to be a fantastic player this year for the Detroit Pistons. Sort of what he was able to give to the OKC Thunder and some of the other teams that he's been on in the past. You're going to see his attributes be a positive for Detroit basketball. I think that at the end of the day, he had a good season last year numbers-wise, but they were just not playing for anything. So this year it looks like they're going to be looking forward towards trying to build. It doesn't look like they're going to be playing for a lottery pick this season. Motorcade is here now, so they're not doing that. I expect to see that huge lineup to upset some people. And teams like New York and the Celtics and some of these other teams that are kind of teetering, a team like Detroit, if they overachieve, they could push you out. They could push you out. So that's why I think all these teams should get better, because the East is so much better. You're not even considering a Detroit Piston team as a team that's really about to do anything. But then you look at their starting five, and they're all tall as hell. They're all big as hell. And that's what I'm telling you guys. Like, you're going to be surprised. When you got a 6'8" point guard, and you got Jeremy Grant, and you got Isaiah Stewart, you got Kelly, you got all these guys that are huge. And when you have to go out there and deal with them, Sadiq Bey is a big body. It's going to be something. They didn't have that dynamic last year because they didn't have this big point guard down there. They got him now. So look at Detroit as a team that is not what you think. They're going to catch you off guard. I don't know that they can win right away. You know, I have my questions about Dwayne Casey. I know that situation got a lot better when they fired him in Toronto. Even though he took them to the Eastern Conference Finals, that was a bizarre situation. Sort of like Mark Jackson's situation where you do well and they fire you and then bring somebody else in, they win. But ultimately, Dwayne gets another opportunity, and this is a good one. It's a good opportunity for him to get back out there and build a team that can win and run with a young squad that's going to listen to him and that's going to have that do-work mentality that comes with being a Detroit Piston. So I like it. Everything going on over there seems good. And I think they're like the Houston Rockets of the Eastern Conference, if you ask me. They're not quite there yet, but they got a nice young team. They got pieces they can use to get better. Detroit's looking up, man. It's looking up, and it's been bad for a long time. As you know, they got some bad luck about 5-6 years ago where they thought they were getting a really nice pick and just simply lost it because it was, it fell into the category where if it does a certain thing, it goes to another team because of a previous trade. That happened to them, and it was devastating for them. It set them back very, very bad. They had a whole season where they basically had no young talent and no cap space. So you're looking at a Detroit team that's really had some rough times. But they got their first pick in the draft for the first time in like 60 years, something crazy like that. And he looks like he's going to be one that's going to do some real work. So, yeah, that's somebody I picked up sparingly. I think I got him about 4 times. 3-4 times. My only question about Cade is his athleticism at this point. I think he's going to have to get in better shape to carry the load that they're going to want him to carry. Players like Ben Simmons, LeBron James, guys who have been put in those roles to be the big point forward at the point guard position, they usually have athleticism that allows them to carry the loads of 48, 82 several years in a row. I don't know that Motorcade has the body for that. I'm wondering if his lack of athleticism is going to push him into some situations where he's not as durable as you need him to be. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that. It's just watching a player and wondering if the athleticism is going to hold up for the load. So if I have any question, it has nothing to do with his game. I just have questions about whether or not he'll be able to handle it, handle the physicality of what it is he's going to be asked to do for that team. A lot of pressure on him. That's his squad. He's coming into a Dame Lillard type situation where he immediately becomes the face of the franchise before he even walks through the door. So I say Dame Lillard in that way, even though it wasn't necessarily like that. But because Dame played so well out the gate, and they had nothing on their team, they had just lost Brandon Roy and all that stuff, you would look at the Portland and say, okay, this is our guy immediately, and you know it. So that's why I compared it to. More so like LeBron, to be honest. But anyway, so that's what I got, man. Fantasy basketball is underway over here. It's early. I would not recommend any novice people or even any anyone to draft this early. I just drafted this early because I just felt like it, to be honest with you. And I assumed the risk. But the risk of you run in drafting early with both basketball, fantasy, football, and anything else is if guys get hurt in preseason, it'll throw your whole season off. Most people in most leagues are not going to draft before they know exactly what's going to happen injury-wise. I just happen to be hard-headed and want to draft early because I'm like that. So if you're going to follow some advice of somebody, wait until about preseason week 2 to draft most of your teams if you want to be smart about it and you want to be careful about it. Another reason why I draft early is because I know me, and I'm going to find what's on the waiver wire. So even if my team sucks, I'm still going to be in a position to do well. But if you draft early and 1 or 2 players go down, and I've had this happen where not just 1, but 2 players go down from your top picks, it will set you back no matter how well you play the waiver wire. You're going to lose. Happened to me in fantasy this year, football. I drafted early on my teams, put Cam Akers on like 6 teams. He's out for the season. Now all those teams are shot. Like some of those teams, I didn't even have adequate running backs. So I run the risk. It's a mistake that happens every year to me. I always end up having this happen every year, but I'm hard-headed, so I did it that way. Was there anything else? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is there anything else? Kelden Johnson is somebody that's going undrafted in 10-team leagues, but I think he's going to have a massive role in San Antonio. He's pretty much the main guy there. So look for him to be somebody that's probably going to be on your waiver wire if you're doing the 10 teams. Also, was another player that came to mind just now. God, it just went out of my head that quickly. But yeah, you want to definitely make sure you pay attention to the ADPs on some of those players, man. Go to the bottom, because you're going to see players that are probably going to have big roles. Like, for example, you won't even see Davion Mitchell of the Sacramento Kings listed. He's going undrafted 100% of the times in 10 leagues. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know that he's going to have a lesser role than Tyrese Halliburton. I'm not certain of that. Tyrese Halliburton has had some injury issues, and off night is an elite defensive and offensive player. Tyrese Halliburton looks like the odd man out, to be honest with you, because it's not going to be De'Aaron Fox on that contract. No. And like I said, when I watch Davion Mitchell, as much as I like Tyrese Halliburton on both sides of the floor, the injury for him, recovering from that injury versus what Davion brings to the table out the gate healthy, just makes you wonder if it's like, yo, Tyrese going to have to find his role in this team, and that's not good because he's a leading point guard in this league. I would love to see Sacramento trade one of those guys, but if they have to trade one today, it's definitely Halliburton, unfortunately, and that is ill-advised. It's ill-advised to trade Tyrese Halliburton, period. But they just have a plethora of riches at that point guard position. When you have 3 arguably all-star caliber point guard prospects, what can you do? You just have, I've made videos on this. You just have to either live with them or trade one of them and hope to God you trade the right one. Because you ain't going to pay all of them. Building around 3 guards is impossible. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. And it's not impossible. I want to preface that by saying it's possible, but it's just not, it's ill-advised. If they're all making massive amounts of money, that means your bigs are going to be on lower contracts, and that is a dangerous game you're playing in this NBA. So that's what I mean by that. So yeah, man, what is this? 23 minutes fantasy basketball, bro. I could talk about this for hours. I should do a whole show on fantasy basketball because it's really, really, really a passion of mine. And it's where I get most of my NBA stuff because I don't be watching League Pass. I don't have the money to be paying all that right now. So when I get all of my stuff, it's usually through statistics and highlights. And I will preface that by saying I be wrong some of the time. So when you watch me, you're watching an opinion. I am not an expert. So that's what I got, man. Thank y'all for watching. My name is BDL44, and I'm out.